Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're here with Meaghan Gray from the Toronto Police Service. Meaghan, I'll let you tell us a little bit about what you do there.
Excellent. Hi, Mitch. Thanks for having me for this interview. I'm in the corporate communications section here at the Toronto Police Service. Part of my responsibilities include our social media project. That's all the officers that have been trained to use social media for communications and community outreach, as well as overseeing the officers here in corporate communications, the media relations officers and social media officers who use social media on a day-to-day basis.
Awesome. So it sounds just from your intro like there are many members of the TPS which are using social media. So kind of how many official social media profiles does the TPS have?
So right now we have about 300 unique profiles on social media. Mostly are on Twitter and Facebook. Some of those officers are using the Twitter and Facebook individually in their roles as a police officer, and others are contributing to like a unit-specific page or a program-specific page, and not necessarily using as an individual officer. So, for instance, in our office here, almost every member of corporate communications has their own social media profile, but mostly we use that to access the Toronto Police corporate accounts and send out messages from there. So we have a few units across the service that have multiple members that have the ability to post to them, and then we have some officers that are using it individually.
Gotcha. Okay, so I guess you've sort of answered it, but aside from the individual officers kind of who run their own, who's kind of in charge overall of kind of the social media profiles for the TPS?
Corporate Communications is in charge of the social media for communications profiles right now within the service. If members want to use social media to assist with their public engagement and their communications efforts, they come through Corporate Communications, and we provide a 2-day training course at our college for them. And we also try and provide some ongoing mentorship and messaging opportunities for all of the members who are denoted as social media users for the service.
Awesome. So I think you said kind of Facebook and Twitter are the main platforms that you use, and what would you say are kind of your overall objectives with each platform as a communications tool?
Well, certainly, I think just a general community engagement is our main goal. What we try and do is create both a push and pull effect in our communications. So we encourage our officers to not just populate their pages or profiles with information, but we encourage them to use it as an opportunity to dialogue with members of their community. Particularly young people, it's a good opportunity for us to engage with them in that way, and really encourage a two-way communication as opposed to just populating the page and then not engaging, or alternatively just to receive messages. We really try to encourage that mutual exchange of information.
Awesome. And I think really that's what those tools are all about, is an effective kind of two-way communication, a dialogue really. So kind of aside from that, is there kind of being that they're, I guess, marketing tools, do you follow kind of an editorial or marketing content calendar?
Yeah, not really. What we really do is encourage the members who are using the social media accounts to develop their own content based on their roles and responsibilities. So, for instance, we really encourage our school resource officers to have their own accounts and to populate their accounts with information that would obviously be relevant to the school and students that they're assigned to. Likewise, we have crime prevention officers that have pages, and they populate their pages mostly with crime prevention tips and suggestions. Or we have some other units who are using it to find wanted individuals. Some of them have come up with rather catchy campaigns, if you will. We have Catch 22 in 22 Division and Wanted Wednesdays out in 55. And so they're using it for public safety and public safety and crime prevention in that way. What we will do here corporately is we'll try and send messages every couple of weeks to all of our users to let them know about various campaigns that are going on or various projects within the service, and provide them with a standard bit of messaging or some photos that all they have to do then is cut and paste into their account.
Gotcha. So can you tell me a little bit more about Catch 22 and or Wanted Wednesdays?
Yeah, so really what it is every week the division has come up with whoever their most wanted person is for that week, and they put together a news release with a photo that gets sent to our office to get sent out to the mainstream media. But what they've also done is create pages on Facebook and Twitter that they then put the information out to. So as I said, they do it weekly. The media and the community have come to expect it now. It started off with Wanted Wednesday in 55 Division, which is just east of downtown Toronto, followed by 22 Division, which is in the opposite direction. And sure enough, we now have Wanted Ones in 11 Division, and it's really caught on. A lot of divisions have seen the benefit of creating these campaigns and are starting their own.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear that there's been some benefit with those.
Absolutely, and success too. We always put
Awesome.
out an update when someone's actually been captured thanks to one of their campaigns.
Excellent. And I guess that's a big part of the effectiveness too, is the community at large seeing, oh, there's been some good that's actually come from this. So that's kind of that reinforcement for the community, which is great. So
Absolutely.
given that there are, I think you said 300 kind of social media profiles across TPS, which is kind of hard to wrap our head around. And obviously there's a lot of training that everyone goes through. Is there a fairly kind of robust social media policy that everyone has to kind of learn and sign off on, or?
Yeah. I mean, we do have a procedure in place that states if you want to use social media, you have to come through corporate communications, and you have to be approved by your supervisor to use the platforms, and you have to be trained on those platforms before you can go out there as a representative of the Toronto Police Service. Part of our training includes a section on what we call media and the message, which is really an abbreviated media relations training component, where we try and provide our members with some guidance on how they can maximize their social media use, how they can use it to engage with the community and to put that two-way dialogue in place. And we also include a component of professional standards as well, to let folks know that there's an expectation of what their social media content is and how they will engage with the public, and the consequences of what happens when they don't.
Gotcha. So, given how much social media continues to grow and to change really since, obviously it's been around in various forms for a number of years, but kind of since 2008, 2009, it seems to have kind of taken on a bit more so the form where it is now, although it continues to grow. So at what point did the TPS kind of recognize that it really needed to formalize what was going on with social media and create things like a social media policy?
Well, we really only formalized our strategy a couple of years ago. What we had previously was we had two officers, Police Constable Scott Mills and Sergeant Tim Burrows, who I'm sure many will be familiar with if they've been following Toronto Police social media for the last number of years. And those two officers really started to launch the Toronto Police Service in the social media space. They realized that these were tools that we simply couldn't do without, and they jumped in with both feet and created a following and a friends list for themselves and for the service. And certainly the rest of the service took notice, in addition to some of their officers who started to realize that they too wanted to be using social media. And corporately, we realized we had really nothing in place to support these officers when they were doing this. There wasn't any training. We didn't have any procedures. And thankfully, while Scott and Tim were success stories, we knew that with 5,000 officers, we may not be as lucky if everyone jumped onto social media without any corporate support. And it's why we decided to, we had a social media working group. We partnered with an external consultant, Lori Stevens from Laws Communications, and put together our strategy and a proposal for the command that included everything from our procedure to training, to a monitoring plan, to any number of things that you would think an organization would have to be put into place in order to really have their head wrapped around a social media strategy.
Excellent. So, kind of with some certain recent events in mind, have there been any significant impacts on disaster response as a result of the TPS's use of social media? I guess I'm thinking specifically of the recent floods, but other examples as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly, one of the things we've tried to do a better job at over the last little while is really incorporate social media into our emergency planning and into our emergency management, both before, during, and after an event. And really, we've realized across the service that any communication strategy that gets put into place for these types of things has to contain a social media component, whether that be for the front end of communicating with the public or from the back end when you're trying to manage a public response to these types of things. Certainly with the recent flooding here in Toronto, we tried to do that, and what we saw happen, were people who were using the social media accounts to let us know of things that were going on. And certainly while we have told the public not to use our social media accounts in place of calling the police or reporting an emergency, inevitably that happens in these situations. So we actually received a tweet on our Toronto Police account about a woman who was stuck in an elevator in one of our downtown buildings, and that was the way that we were able to action a call in order to get her rescued from that situation.
Wow. Well, that's amazing that social media led to her getting rescued. Do you envision, that almost becoming not part of your policy or procedure, but something that you're kind of open to have happen, I suppose, in the future when there's kind of those very extraordinary circumstances?
You know what? I think it's something that we are starting to think about, and we have to start thinking about it. So as much as we say on our accounts that they're not monitored 24/7 and people are not to use them to report crime or as a substitute for 911, inevitably I think the public is starting to use social media in that way. So whether it's something that we want to pursue as a service and as an emergency service partner, I don't think social media is going to give us a choice, and I think we've recognized that. And certainly we're starting to, as we see the increase in calls for service happening on our social media accounts, we're starting to figure out how we as a service can manage that responsibility.
Interesting. Well, it'll be very interesting for us to kind of keep an eye and see as that progresses with law enforcement agencies and other kind of emergency response. But I think that is the way of social media, be it for businesses or nonprofit organizations or first response organizations, police services, that ultimately our whatever intentions we have with social media, sometimes ultimately it's the users and the networks that get to dictate what happens, and we're seeing that more and more kind of across all types of users of social media.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So beyond kind of the disaster response, a little bit more generally, would you say that you've been able to use, or that the police service has been able to use social media to build positive engagement and interactions kind of between the community at large and the police force or individual officers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've had some real successes with engaging with the public and really enhancing our ability to communicate with our communities and to engage with our communities. And again, whether that be, I know of individual officers who have really done a great job at maximizing that opportunity and have really engaged with their community and have developed followings that I'm not sure any of us would have ever expected when we first started. And then we have some units that are the same way. They've really, as a unit, focused on contributing in all the different ways to those accounts and really making it a place that the people in their local area can rely on for information. I would hope that we can continue down that path and we can start to replicate some of those efforts in all areas of the city and make sure that every division has that opportunity to engage with their local police officer in that way.
Excellent. Well, Meaghan, that wraps it up for us, and we want to thank you for taking the time to chat a little bit about what you've got going on with the Toronto Police Service and all of your social media efforts. We've been noticing what's been going on with you guys for a little while, and think it makes a great case study. So we appreciate you making the time, and we look forward to seeing the Toronto Police Service grow as social media grows, and see what you guys will be implementing next.
That's great. Thanks so much, Mitch. I appreciate the opportunity.